Like, I want to start over all
Hello.
over.
Welcome to the podcast. Today, our topic is real estate stuff. We're going to ramble. We have a topic in mind and we'll keep circling back to it and try to keep each other on task.
Yeah,
Today's
the
topic is
equity. Yay. I think that's everybody's favorite thing about real estate, conceptually.
Yeah. So
So
what is it, Rachel? What's equity?
equity is what is left after you deduct what you owe on your property from the value of your property. Oh my God, could I overcomplicate this?
Put more
Jesus,
words in it. Yes.
If I could find some bigger words to put in there
She's
too, that'd be amazing.
Merriam-Webster, folks.
Equity is your ownership interest in your own property. I'm going to use some numbers. If your house is worth $500,000 and you owe $200,000, then you have $300,000 in equity. Yeah.
So it's basic math, right? And so how do you find out what your house is worth, Rachel? So you could figure out how much equity. Do I just guess?
You just guess. I mean, you look it up on Zillow.
You just guess? Yeah.
Duh. No,
Zillow's always right.
No, you look at the assessor's opinion of value.
Oh, that's not right either, Rachel. Keep
not?
going.
Hold on.
I
ask
know
your
a really
neighbor.
good way.
You look at what your neighbor's house sold for last time it sold and decide that that's what your house is worth.
So you are saying all these things that most people actually do, but what's the best way? Let me try one more time. What's the best way to figure out what your home's worth to see how much equity you have?
Oh, I have two answers. The actual best way and the only way is to put it on the market and sell it.
But if you don't want to do that and waste a bunch of people's time, try one more time. What's the best way to do that?
You could get an appraisal. You could talk to a realtor, do a market analysis. They're similar. They're two different approaches to the same.
We're going to talk about those later, but I agree. Yeah, that is the best way. So
for lots of
why
reasons.
is it important to know how much equity you have?
Oh, if you're trying to tap your equity and how you're going to tap your equity depends.
That equity. Okay.
And I love it when you dance. You totally derailed me. Also would be important if you're keeping track of your net worth and you include that in your calculations.
We won't go into a rabbit hole on whether that's a good idea or not.
Okay. But we're going to end up there.
All money is fake money. It's the construct, but
yeah, thank you. Oh man, you just went right to the end of my whole point that all of the equity.
I'm sorry. I didn't know. I don't see her
lock
notes,
it in.
You guys.
Yeah. I'm gonna say it again because we were both talking at the same time. All equity
really good
is
at that.
Bullshit until you lock it in. Jesus.
Okay. So we know what equity is.
Yeah.
So can I just say statistically, somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% of homes in the US are considered equity rich, meaning they have a lot of equity in their home.
Is there a particular percentage that has to be hit to be considered equity rich, or do you just have to be on the right side of the scale?
I don't know. Why don't you talk and I'll look if there's a definition where it goes from having equity to equity rich. I would imagine there is a difference. Everybody has equity when they buy. Not everybody. That's not true.
I was going to say. But if you're 3.5% down, you have 0% equity.
Yes,
but
correct.
If you're 0% down. All right, you go. We have a cadence problem.
No, you go for it.
No. Don't know what I was saying.
Okay. Equity rich. Equity rich is the combined estimated loan balances were no more than 50% of the market value.
That's a huge number.
40% of the people own over half of their value of their house. So they owe less than half of what their home is worth, which is fucking huge.
That is huge.
Huge. It's huge, Rachel.
It's giant. It's amazing.
So what can you do with that equity, Rachel?
I mean, you can just sit on it and feel all puffed up and proud of yourself.
Yeah.
Or we're dancing now. I like it. You can get a home equity line of credit and do stuff with that money. Make home
improvements. Could you also refinance to take money out and use that cash?
Cash out refinance.
Yeah. Oh, you know what you could do with the cash out if you wanted to buy like an investment property?
You could use that money to
You could
put
use the
cash
money to
down
buy
on
an
an
investment
investment.
property.
And you
Yep.
could
You
probably
could
buy
pay off your credit cards.
whole investment property.
Mhm. You could
Yeah.
take the money out and fund your retirement account.
So I feel like telling people what they could do with money is, I don't know if we need to do
You could
that.
throw it on the bed and roll around in it and have sex and get some strippers and go to Vegas and do coke.
Yes,
Lots
you
of stuff
could.
you could do with the money.
Yes, you could. Do not put that as your reason on your application. Highly
Nope.
recommend you keep that one to yourself. But yes,
To be
you could.
fair, you don't need to put a reason. And any underwriter who asks you for a reason is overreaching. If you are tapping
Interesting.
into your equity, you don't need a
Oh,
reason.
yeah. So I just got a home equity line of credit, and they asked me what I wanted the money for.
Did you
I
tell them
was
go
like,
fuck your face?
well,
To buy guinea
I said,
pigs.
go fuck your
Guinea pig
face.
farm. Go fuck
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah. The answer is none of your
I have a
business. None,
dream
yeah.
of a crystal storefront in my basement, and I'm going to sell crystals, and I need
Yeah.
$30,000 to do it, please. And they were like, cool.
I'm
Here
gonna
you
open
go.
a Scandinavian bakery in my in a little shop. And
Yeah. Okay, back to real life, back to life, back to reality.
I was gonna finish that, but I knew you were going to.
Yeah.
So
So why are we talking about equity, Cassandra? Because
well, we
not
needed the
everybody has it.
topic, and a ton of people have an ass ton of
Super,
equity,
super popular.
which means it's a great time to sell and take the money. It's a great time to do a cash out refinance. It's a great time to get a home equity line of credit.
So can we?
It's
Yep. I feel like we should talk about what a cash out refinance is versus a refinance versus a home equity loan or line of credit. These are four different things that you and I both know what they are because we think about them and talk about them every day. But people might not know what the distinctions are because a refinance is a refinance,
okay.
isn't it? So help.
Okay, so the first one, if you have equity and you bought a few years ago and you didn't put 20% down, you can do a regular refinance, right?
What does that mean?
It means you're going to pay off your current mortgage and replace it with a new one.
Oh.
You're not taking money out, right? You literally are just getting a new loan. And one of the primary reasons people do that is to get rid of mortgage insurance if they're paying it. Obviously, getting a better rate is a good idea. There's some analysis that goes into seeing if a refinance is worth doing, but that's what a refinance is.
So what she's saying is if you owe $200,000 on your house and you just do a straight up refinance, you get a different loan for $200,000, pay off the first guy, and then make your payments to the new guy.
Yeah.
Right? So
yep. And usually
$200,000.
Yeah, usually you're going to cut years off. You're going to get a lower rate. You're going to remove private mortgage insurance or some combination of those. There's got to be a benefit. Anybody who's going to do a refinance without a benefit is a fucking shyster. And
usually that benefit shows up as a lower monthly payment. So it's a cash flow improvement.
Yes, and correct. Yep.
So,
and then there's the cash out refinance.
Let me ask the
for the lead-in. Thank you for the invitation.
What is a cash out refinance?
I'm so glad you asked, Rachel. Cash out refinance is similar to a regular refinance, only you'd like to tap into some equity. And get a big fat check at closing to do remodels, purchase an investment property, pay down debt, hire the hookers and do the coke. Exactly. Damn it. Well done.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So in our hypothetical $500,000 house where you owe 200, but the market and the context that you're living in says that your house is worth 500,000, can I do a cash out refinance for $500,000, which means I borrow 500 because that's what my house is worth, pay off the $200,000 note that I currently have, and then I get a check for $300,000?
Well, Rachel, I'm glad you asked. Unfortunately, you must retain 20% equity in your home, which means if your home's worth $500,000, you have to keep 20% of that. So you have to keep $100,000 set aside, but your new loan amount can it be $400,000.
Sweet. That still puts $200,000 in my pocket.
Yes.
That's that is a lot of hookers and blow. I don't know what the going rates are for those things, but it seems like it would be a lot.
I'm sure you know somebody who knows.
I mean, I'm ignorant to those things.
I'm just kidding. I gave her a
Just
big wink, you guys, if you're just listening.
I wasn't even looking, so I didn't know.
Oh,
There it is. Okay,
there.
got it.
Okay.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Nudge, nudge. And Rachel, you mentioned a home equity line of credit.
I
You just
did.
got one. So why don't you tell us what that is?
Okay, so a home equity line of credit. This is funny. Because because I have it, but I haven't used it. But it's basically a checkbook attached to a certain portion of the equity of my house that if I wanted to go, in my case, I took out a $30,000 line of credit against the value of my house. And if I wanted to go do some blow, I could write a check for however much that blow costs.
And
now my payback, it's a secondary lien on the property. So I have to pay it back and there are certain terms. And to be perfectly honest, and Cassandra says this all the time, I have no idea what my interest rate is. I have no idea what the terms are. But at the time I shopped for it, I paid attention to not so much interest rate, mostly because doing what I do, I know that my interest rate has more to do with me than anything. So I just
are you sure?
My free rate
Yeah.
is whatever it is, and then everything else is overlays. So I have money. I have access to the money in my house without having to sell my house or do a completely new mortgage. So there's some peace of mind in there if my furnace croaks, which I feel like I'm flirting with. I'm not tempting
Whoa,
fate
don't put
here,
that out into
universe.
the universe.
I know, but I feel like this is the year that something is going to go wrong with my house. I don't know why. And I will need to write a giant check. And I would rather borrow the money from myself than clean out my bank account.
Well, so a home equity line of credit is a second lien. So you have your original mortgage, so it stays. You have a new lien. So if you sell your house, the first one gets paid, and then the second one gets paid.
Yes.
Typically, I don't know what yours are, but very typically, home equity lines of credit have a 10-year term, which basically means it's open for 10 years.
That's exactly what I have.
When you write a check, it's called a draw. And the only payment that's due monthly is interest. So if you open a home equity line of credit, say you pull 30 grand out of it, Rachel, and you max that baby out, and your monthly payment is $400, and that's only interest, you can basically pay $400 a month for 10 years to have quick access to 30 grand. It's typically cheaper than a credit card. But most people,
cheaper than a credit card.
Yeah, but you can draw and repay. So you could also stroke a check for 10 grand for a furnace and then repay yourself back when one deal lands in your account, because you realtors get paid so much money.
I mean, we don't do anything either. It's amazing.
I know, you just sit around.
Falls from the sky.
People were kidding.
That's a different episode. Let's not get bitter.
I
mean, you don't do much either, do you? Right? Like, how dare you charge people for money?
I know. How dare I get
sarcasm? Okay. I don't know if sarcasm conveys. I hope so. I sure hope so. So equity. At the beginning, we said it's not real money until you lock it in. So what we're talking about are ways to lock it in. You are turning that fantasy money into real money. And even my line of credit is not real money unless and until I write a check. It's interesting how quickly I have so many rabbit trails available, but one that pops up in the front is the value of that money also changes. Like as inflation and the value of the dollar changes, I almost feel like I should go write that check now and spend it on something, because it will not be worth as much in 6 months. I may not. I'm not predicting.
Okay.
I just stepped on a thought. Sorry.
So that's fine. So just for people listening, in our show notes, we have a couple links. One talks about the home equity that's around, and it breaks it down really good geographically. If we're both based in Michigan, there's literally one city in like the entire Midwest that is equity rich, and it's Grand Rapids. Again, it's got explosive growth. Most people have equity only about 3.5% of all homeowners are underwater currently, which is it's like the lowest number ever. Go ahead.
Historic lows. Well, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
we touch on out in the wild with customers and clients and acquaintances and friends. I keep hearing this bubbling under conversation, this undercurrent of belief that, and a lot of it came out of it wasn't forbearance. Is that the right word? That the COVID
Yep.
forbearance status that was slapped on a lot of mortgages. There's this bubbling undercurrent of belief that there's going to be all these foreclosures coming and people are waiting till the market shifts. And with this kind of equity, I think even if values dip or start to, I don't want to use the word plummet, but significantly shift downward, which is not what all of the data points to. But let's imagine there's a black swan event and values shift downward such that some equity just disappears. It's no different than the value of a stock that you own going from worth $1,000 a share to worth 50 cents a share. Let's imagine the housing market does something like that with this kind of equity. And the current demand that's not expected to shift anytime soon. I just don't see a bunch of foreclosure inventory, pennies on the dollar kind of shit like we saw last time, but there are people out there waiting for it. And might I add, the banks that were blindsided by having to deal with all of this inventory in their laps now have well-oiled machine arms of their bank that know how to deal with these properties and get top dollar for them also.
So, and we are in a situation, I would just like to also add that because there's so much equity built up, right? Foreclosures are highly unlikely because people typically you foreclose is like, yes, you list the home, you sell it, you take the proceeds because you get money because you have equity. Remember, if 40% of us own more than 50% of what our house is worth, you take the check and go rent someplace for a year. It's not going to be a foreclosure. There's not going to be those deals. As it is, investors are buying homes still, and that was a whole nother episode we did.
We talked about your competition is stiff. People have equity that, and it's a little bit off topic, but definitely related. That equity, existence of so much equity, coupled with the high demand, makes it incredibly unlikely that there will be super cheap houses available for cash or whatever scenario you're imagining.
Well, I also included in the show links, there's a link I picked the AARP one on like tapping into your home's equity. And anybody can do this. Actually, the majority of the home buyers right now are millennials, but for retirement income earners, you could also do a reverse mortgage. I'm not even going into that. That's not my wheelhouse, but you can tap into your home's equity if you're having cash flow issues, right? It's interest only. So if you need a cash infusion, that's a pretty good way to do it. It's very low risk. You can stockpile your assets, if you will.
Question.
Sure.
I just had a thought that made me think of another time that we had some really rough economic times. Should I take the equity out of my house and, like, I don't know, go buy some stocks with it?
Well, I am not a financial planner, but I would say if you look at the straight numbers, typically the stock market will year over year earn some 7.4% or something like that, right?
Sure.
If your home equity loan, it depends on what your rate is for your home equity loan, but if you look at just interest rates, right? If you're earning 7.4%, but you're paying 3%, it makes sense to take your money and put it in something that is making you money, making you more than what you would pay.
Doesn't this feel
compound
dangerous?
interest, baby? Compound interest. I should include a compound interest calculator because it is the one thing that nobody ever talks
Compounding is
about
it's so
it,
sexy. I love
it's
compounding. I
when
wish
it's
I had
when
learned
you're
about it 20 years ago.
Me too. Did you know that if you put just shy of 3 grand in your kid's bank account when they're born, the day they're born, they'll be millionaires by the time they retire. And you don't have to add another penny to it.
Nope.
Compound interest is your friend. It just, in the same way. So when people look at their mortgage and they go, sweet, I have a $200,000 mortgage. Why the fuck am I paying back $300,000 over 30 years?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's passive income for the lender. That's all interest that is earned. They loaned you the money and you're going to pay them back what they loaned you. Plus, it ends up being $100,000 in interest because it's compounded. When your money is making you money in that same way, you become the bank and you passively start making that income. So
And there's
compound
always,
interest.
if you go look at any compounding table, there's a tipping point where the numbers just spike. Like it's a
Yes,
nice
it's a
visual
snowball.
representation of what compounding is. The first
I
time I
had to
saw
look at
those charts, I was just like, "Oh my God, how did I not get this years ago?"
there's
Um,
a there's a
I just
rule 72. What is the
yes.
compound? I go ahead.
Oh no, I was
It's
just gonna.
it's how long it takes to double. Go ahead.
I'm not going ahead. I'm gonna wait for you to finish. Are you
No,
done?
go ahead. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Um, so we talked. Well, I just want to make sure we hit all the points. So we talked about a cash out refinance. We talked about a regular refinance. We talked about a home equity line of credit. So what is a home equity loan?
Oh, a home equity loan. So your home
It's
equity line of
different.
credit is like a credit card. It's open
Yeah.
for 10 years. You can take money, you can pay it back, you can take money, you can pay
It's
it
a
back,
credit
blah,
card
blah, blah.
that's only open
Tied to your
for
house.
10 years and it's secured against my home.
And that's the reason the rate is so low. It's a secured loan, not
Yes.
like some
Credit
fucking
card.
whimsical shit. They're like, great, we'll take her house if she doesn't pay on it.
Yes.
A home equity loan,
Well,
right,
that gives me another question.
is a loan that you take and you pay it back. And it's set, the interest rate's set, it's fixed, and you pay it back. It's more like a car loan kind of, right? It's an
Yep.
installment type
It's
loan. It's
is it kind of like 80/20 loans? Had a kind of a similar structure. You had a first, I know, I roll. It's not a product that does it even exist anymore? It
not
does.
80/20, but there are 90/10, so you can go 10% down and no PMI.
Yeah. So what
I'm
what
sorry,
she's
eighty
talking about.
ten, 80/10.
Okay, so you still have to have some skin in the game. You have
You
to
bring
bring some
10%, you get
a
the
loan.
loan for 80%, and then you get a second lien for 10%, and you avoid PMI. They usually only do those on like on larger loans, jumbo
Okay.
type loans.
So basically what she's talking about is borrowing part of your down payment against the asset that you're getting your mortgage on. It gets a
Mhm.
little fruity, right? Like
Yeah, it's creative lending, and that's, I would posit, one of the reasons we had a shit show like 15 years ago, but that's
well,
just my opinion.
so that brings me back to what I was saying earlier. Doesn't the idea, so on paper, and so many things look good on paper that just don't pan out in real life, right? Like socialism. But let's go back to my point.
No, go
If
back to socialism,
we will,
Rachel.
I mean, I'm sure we'll touch on it again. Actually, I think that came up last week's episode. Anyway, oh my gosh, find the thread. It's in my brain. There are so many loose threads up there. Oh, doesn't it feel risky to borrow money against your primary residence just because? So having equity, we talked about, is like fake money. It's not real until you lock it in. So once you lock it in, you're also locking in the debt because you have to pay yourself back. You have to buy that chunk of your house again, that percentage of your house again. If I take that money and put it into a stock market investment, doesn't that start feeling bubbly? Like kiting a little bit? And I said kiting, not hiding. I just realized it sounded like hiding.
Like kiting a little bit, kiting a
Kiting.
little bit. Well, I would say there's a risk in all things, and it
Of course.
depends.
Yeah,
What is
damn it.
if
Always it
I
depends.
know if you owe, I mean, so personally, I would rather have no debt, right? Everybody would. I'm totally fine hanging on to a house debt. Totally fine with that. It is an expense I will always account for. It doesn't bother me. I don't need to have like a mortgage burning party or what, like it's fucking 1960 or some
Will
shit,
you come to
right?
my mortgage burning party in like when I'm 70?
Yes, I will try.
Okay.
I'm busy that day. Hold on.
Look, put it in your
Mortgage
calendar, please.
burning party. Yeah. At 70, you say?
You're the
Okay,
only
man.
person I invited. Well, I might do a cash out refi in a couple years.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard to know. A lot of it depends on your financial goals, right? If you have a lot of, I would tell anybody if they have a lot of debt and they're struggling to get out from underneath it, even if you're not struggling, but you're like sick of carrying it, student loan debt,
It's
credit card
exhausting.
debt, just shit. Like, cause credit card debt's really hard to like make fucking headway on,
Yep.
right?
Unless you have giant chunks to just,
Huge chunks, because you could get to the point, all right, full truth, I was at a point where I had about, and I was a single mom, I had a lot of credit card debt. I was making the monthly minimum a little bit over, but it was not moving the needle. It was not moving the needle. I
no.
had to basically beg them to do a settlement agreement, so I stopped paying interest and agreed to pay a set amount every single month for 60 months so that my debt got away. That's the only reason at that time in my life I was able to pay that obligation off, which I
Yeah.
wanted to do, but I wasn't moving the needle at all. So if you're in a situation like that, your home's equity, I guess if you look at it a different way, you're basically taking that credit card debt and skimming it out over 30 years, but it fucking goes away, right? To the tune of, an extra $10 or $20 a month on your mortgage, but it actually disappears and you can
And
free that up.
yes, the trick is to not access that credit card money again.
Yes.
Then you're just moving
Yeah,
kicking the can, if you will.
exactly. It's not like a rinse and repeat and, oh, I get to, I'm going to refinance and you continually go into debt.
Right.
It's
Rack
really a
up your
good
credit
idea.
cards, refinance your house, pay those debts off, go
Right.
rack up those cards again
Yeah,
so
we
you can
wouldn't recommend
refinance your
that
house.
as
No,
non-financial advisors. We'd recommend
no.
that on a fucking human level for your own sense of self-worth. Like none of the shit really matters. Be happy with who you are, stop buying the shoes and the purses, people. But yeah.
Yeah, but no,
I mean, as a
I'm not going to
compulsive
stop
level,
buying
it's
anything.
not, it's like, okay, there are times I see people with multiple bankruptcies on their credit report.
Multiple?
Multiple, and they stay for 10 years.
Yeah.
And you would think the first go around might be traumatic enough, but then you see another one 3 years later. Is it cudgel the right word? A crutch? What's the right word? So when you have equity in something, obviously the good idea is to leverage it and get yourself in a better position fiscally.
Yeah.
If you have no debt, then don't fucking tap into your equity, right? If you're good on all, then don't tap into your equity. Just work towards paying that debt down so that you have more cash flow, right? It kind of depends on what your goal is. If you have kids you want to put in college, like I should probably get a home equity loan here soon if my kids go to college so that I can just tap that and pay it as I want so that they don't come out owing $250,000 in debt or something.
Right. So
Anyway.
equity is at an all-time high across the nation, and it is untapped money. It's like fake money.
All money's fake money.
I know. I almost didn't say it because I don't want to go down that rabbit trail, but then I really do.
Do you want to? Because
well,
Bitcoin's fake money. It's all fucking fake money.
it's all
it's all fake.
You said something to me about money years ago that stuck with me, and I'll probably butcher it, but the gist of it was that money is a physical representation of energy. Like it's a, and it is, I don't know, I'm kind of just going on, but it's a physical representation of energy and the value of where you're spending your energy in the market today. And I add that bit in my head because I think about, I don't know, our parents' generation, there was a lot of like manual physical labor that was highly valued, and our grandparents' generation even more so. And those skills are not so valued in our generation and the generations coming behind us.
but they are still very necessary
Agreed.
skills and becoming far more costly. So it's going to
Yes.
be like a twisty turn, right? Good luck getting a
Paradigm shift.
contractor.
Again, it's
Absolutely.
all just a, yeah. And we only have what
You know
we've
what?
been through as our
You're
tools
going to
to
need
navigate
that.
where we are. What?
I was going to say, like, you're going to need that home equity loan to afford
Yeah.
a contractor to come because it's
Yes. So one of the
very
cool,
expensive.
a little bit off topic, but one of the cool things that I'm seeing around that conversation has to do with I have a friend who's a blacksmith, and I don't know that blacksmithing is very desirable, but he makes really cool shit, and it's a craft. It's an art form, Whereas I think
Yeah.
in the old west, a blacksmith was like a farmer, right? He makes horseshoes and has an anvil and whatever the hell blacksmith.
Go on with your
Smith.
blacksmith terms,
I wasn't
Rachel.
even there.
She said
Yeah,
anvil.
I did. I just wanted to insert anvil. It always makes me think of cartoons.
I'm so glad you did.
Ah, thank you. He
Yes.
actually has an anvil. Anyway, I do believe that his craft is a craft now, whereas if blacksmithing were a job that people did, like they did in olden times, I think. I wasn't there to see it, but that's what the movies taught me. I don't know. It's almost like an opportunity to be a craftsman. I keep using this word. What am I trying to say here? Those physical jobs like woodworking, right? Like I think any idiot can pick up a hammer and put a nail through it and stick two pieces of wood together. I can do that. But our dad is a woodworker. He can craft beautiful things because he's so familiar with his material. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this or why, but this is where we ended up.
I stopped short of continuing and telling you where my dad is, where our father is right now and what he's doing and why I would rather have him than almost anybody else due to skill set. But
Yeah.
he's got a lot
But
of
affording
skills.
him, if you had to go hire that guy with that
Yes.
experience, you might need a home equity line of credit because
Yep.
it's not cheap.
Yeah. So there's a ton of equity out there, probably untapped. You can either tap into it four ways: a set loan, basically a home equity loan.
I would say five, right?
There's the home equity line of credit, which is a big credit card with a super low interest rate. There's the cash out refinance, which is a way to tap into it. So you can borrow up to 80% of your home's value. And the best way to get that is with an appraisal or get a realtor to do a market analysis. And then we talked about other equity. You could also do a regular refinance and use your equity to just remove your private mortgage insurance, right? Or potentially lower your loan to value, meaning your interest rate's better. So you can at least look at it. It's free to see if it's worth doing any of those things.
There
Go
are
ahead.
two other ways. The reverse mortgage, which we're not going to talk in detail about because neither one of us really understands it adequately enough to be talking about it like we know. Maybe you do.
I know people and I
think I
can give
know.
referrals for some
Sure.
of the best reverse mortgage people. I'm not doing that.
But it is a way
Not talking.
that might
Yes,
fit
it
your
is a way.
circumstance. And then
Yes.
my favorite way, selling your house. Freaking sell
Yeah.
it. It's too big for you anyway. I know you've lived there for 30 plus years and you're really proud that you paid off your mortgage, but your kids are gone. They're doing their own thing. You don't need 3,000 or 4,000 square feet anymore. And you're tired of mowing that lawn, aren't you?
Yeah.
Just sell it. That will unlock your equity.
Yeah. You tap into some money. So yeah, there's
the
a lot of
most-
equity abound, that fake money out there, lots of ways to get at it. And using your home as a secured lien, basically you're basically putting your home on the line, but using your home is the cheapest way to borrow money.
Yes.
Even though your home's not an investment, according to Rachel.
Well, do you want to talk about that at all? I keep getting thrown in front of the bus on this. Not quite under the bus, which I appreciate, but I'm in the line of getting hit by the damn bus.
But you always jump out, and it's always fun.
I know. Well, so the reason I say that it's not a good investment, your home, I'm not saying real estate's not a good investment. Don't misconstrue or bend what I'm saying into something it's not. I'm saying when you're there are a couple of things at play. When you're buying a home to live in, you're buying a home. It's not an investment piece. You don't do it with your wedding gown, or it's a kind of a sexist example maybe, but I'll just get right to it. The equity isn't real. It's not real money until you unlock it. So if you are viewing your primary residence as your big investment, as the big, shining star in your net worth, you can't have that money unless you either borrow money from your house, which you then have to have the cash flow to pay back, or you have to sell the damn thing and find somewhere else to live. So it's not like you can sell a stock and still have a place to sleep. If you sell your house, you have to have a contingency plan of where you're going to live. That is why I say what I say. I don't think it's good to conflate your home as, yes, are they wealth builders? Sure. Over time, historically, the value of your house is likely to improve, but you may not be in a position to sell at the top of the market in 10, 15, 20 years. What if the time that you need that money to retire is the time that the market is upside down because of some black swan event and nobody will buy your fucking house, or interest rates are astronomical? I just don't think it's good to put your house mentally into the forefront of your asset and retirement planning, which is why I say what I say. It's a little bit pot story, but that's by design to get people talking and thinking.
I agree with you. The house is not the primary means towards retirement. Wealth. However, right, there is a lot of equity, fake phantom money out there right now up for grabs. So if you're in a position where you might be able to leverage that to get in a better position, it's worth looking at.
Absolutely. Explore your options. Turn that fake phantom money into real accessible money that can actually help you and can actually do something. It's definitely more worthwhile, more valuable, I guess, to have access to the real money if you need it than to, and it all depends on your situation that you're actually in, right? It depends. Always, always, always. But having equity, having some mental box checked that says, oh, I own 50% of my home. I feel like I have $250,000 because my house is worth $500,000. That's only true right now, and it's only real if you lock it in.
Right. When you're coming to same thing with the stock market, right? Yes. My balance was different yesterday than it is today.
Yeah. That gold bar that you're sitting on is valueless until you sell it. I'm going to try and think of really more confusing ways to say the same thing. On that note, no, that's it. I think that's the point. No, equity positions are good across the nation, which is good. And consider turning that fake money into real money. Lots of ways you can do it.
Yeah.
Again, we're not financial advisors. We're not attorneys. Sometimes we sound like those things, but we're not those things.
Right. But there's some really good, cool calculators that also, like, strategic, just from a number standpoint, absolutely validate all the words that come out of our mouth regarding equity and leveraging your position. And so help me God, if you take nothing else away, go look up fucking compound calculator and start putting it compound interest. Just look it up.
Compounding is sexy. That is your takeaway. Are we done?
Yeah.
All right.
So bye, you guys. Check the show notes. All of our contact info is there still, and rinse and repeat until you got it. Check out the links and make it a great day.
All right. See ya.